Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers webinar series. Today we're super excited to have Zac Smith and Tony Kitsos from UVM Extension talking about and sharing their work on the Clean Water Initiative program in working on agricultural business support to help with water quality improvements. So go ahead, Zac. Thanks.
Thanks, Becky. So this presentation today, what we're going to do is just go over a few of the details of the program, what we've done in the past and what we're looking forward to doing in the near future. And then we were planning on doing a little Q&A at the end. We can elaborate. I mean, if there's not enough questions, we can elaborate on a few other points that we'd like to go over. So let's jump in. The UVM Extension agricultural business engages with forest and maple enterprises using valuable planning and educational resources to promote a strong agricultural economy. Our experienced team delivers one-on-one small group learning opportunities that enhance decision-making and viability. Our programs and research provide direction for key stakeholders to advance initiatives that improve business outcomes in a dynamic agricultural sector. The purpose of this program, of our water quality program, is to facilitate decision-making by farmers to reduce nutrient loading from agricultural operations, as well as improve economic and environmental viability on Vermont farms through education and outreach for increased awareness, technical assistance for conservation practice adoption and implementation, funding opportunities, and business planning. A little bit of a background on our program, which we started in 2018, and our first round we started in 2018 and completed in this past summer of 2020. The major undertaking was a certified small farm that we completed. These are like basically I'll talk about what we did, the topic areas, and then the actual results in a second. But so we wanted to complete a survey with certified small farm operations. We wanted to complete one-on-one planning support with farms throughout the state. That planning support involved creating business plans, cash flow analyses, enterprise plans, and just giving general advice on what to do in certain situations. A lot of all of this work resulted in applications for grants for water improvements on the farm, and we wanted to tally up everything and make sure that we were accounting for all the best practices that we completed during our project planning. For the results, what we did with the survey, with the certified small survey, we had over 174 respondents, and we completed a conservation and farm viability on Vermont Farms presentation. We'll have the link here, but we also can send out the link if people never saw that, but we got some very good results from that, which we can elaborate perhaps with some free time. We can bring Tony in to talk about those results. On our one-on-one planning support, we had the goal of reaching out to 40 farms or to collaborating with 40 farms with one-on-one planning support. And we actually worked with 57 farms. And of those 57 farms, over 20,000 acres of farmland was accounted for. Through these participants, over 70% made management decisions directly related to their water quality project. And this project generated over $3.9 million conservation practices on the total farms. One of our major results or top results of our technical assistance was through our survey, the survey that we at the end of this term. We recognized that farms had improved abilities to analyze situations and make decisions related to water quality issues on their farms. Moving forward for the next 2 years, what we want to do is provide continued business technical assistance and strategic planning, business analysis, conservation investment support through grants and loans, and business succession planning and partner referrals. And another real major point that we're doing here is what we want to do is move beyond. We still plan to work with dairy farms, and we imagine a majority of the people that we'll be working with will be dairy farms, but we are starting to find interest from non-dairy farms. So we want to make that very evident that we want to collaborate with non-dairy farms. We're going to also complete a medium farm operation and large farm operation surveys. We will be conducting workshops and webinars throughout the next 2 years. And a major step forward that we're taking is creating online interactive intake and support mechanisms so that farmers can reach out to us online, go through the application process online if they want, and they can also do a self-assessment tools online. We found this to be, we've done some trials and we're finding it to be really a great tool for us to use to just manage everything as we're working through this program. Another thing, if people aren't able to do online intake forms, they could do it over the phone, and one of us, like Tony or myself, or someone else on our team can actually complete the intake forms for them, and it goes into our CRM program that we're using, and it's proved to be pretty beneficial so far. And what perhaps when we send this back out to everybody, we can provide these links to our best practices for project planning, and also the inquiry forms and the assessment tools. So we wanted to make this a kind of a quick presentation of what we're going for, and we wanted to add some space to answer anybody's questions. But also, you know, we want to make sure that everybody has our emails. But yeah, we were anticipating opening it up for questions around this point. So, and perhaps Tony, if I missed anything, Tony could elaborate on anything that he.
Sure, and thanks, Zach. You know, one of the other things that we did when we came up with the idea of putting a project together like this, when the RAPs were passed, the required agricultural practices, of course, were passed in 2016. We had a pilot project that started this whole thing off. It was sort of our first year of funding where we were just kind of testing the waters and to see what sort of interest was out there, and we pretty well got flooded with requests beyond what the grant sort of allowed us to work with. And so we wound up carrying over a bunch of farms from the first year and a half into the 2018 grant cycle that Zach had up there, and then we're able to address them, you know, with the additional funding that we had. So we're moving into our third year. This is our third year of funding, and there's still quite a lot of interest out there in dairyland. We also get a lot of referrals to this particular program from lenders, the Agency of Agriculture, the engineers, and the farm inspectors that they have on the ground come to the farm, and they might see something where it doesn't really rise to the level of a violation, but they'll make the recommendation that the farm business owner get in touch with us so that we can begin that conversation about what needs to be done, what the farm costs are going to be, and just where is that $3.9 million that Zach spoke of earlier. And it really comes in three different forms. NRCS has their EQIP program, and that's a big contributor to getting these projects done. The other would be best management practices dollars at the state. They will contribute an additional $100,000 towards the project. And then bringing all that information and funding back to a lender and say, look, I'm almost there. What do we need to do to finish the funding picture so that this project can be completed? And that's really what, when I start to think about the nuts and bolts and the high level service that we wind up doing, it's just helping a farm coordinate all those parts and players. It can be overwhelming. It's rife with regulation and paperwork, but seems to be that's the best education that we put out there in agricultural business, is to help find ways to get people involved and keep them going. So that'd be about the only thing I would add to the slide presentation that you've got, Zach.
Mhm. And we also wanted to elaborate a little bit about what it's like to work with us. Our goals are if a farmer completes an inquiry or contacts us in any way, we want to get back to them within 48 hours. We understand that a lot of water quality improvements are they are very, very important to the farm, and so we like to have a very rapid response. But normally, what happens is we get familiar with the farm and find out how we can assess what is needed on the farm, and then we go into a project phase, where project management phase, where we lay out everything necessary for the farm to either receive funds to implement improvements, or to actually just go directly into implementing improvements if they find that there isn't a necessity for funding. So sometimes a duration of working with us is just a couple of phone calls, and other times it's a several month, several meeting process of collaborating with us.
I guess I have a question for you guys. Thanks for sharing the great work you do. So as you both know, the majority of vegetable farmers don't actually fall under the RAPs as certified small farm operations. Our estimate is there's about maybe 11 farms that are big enough, and then the rest, just several hundred, are all small farm operations. So a lot of my work has been supporting RAPS compliance, but a lot of it just falls into this sort of gray category of soil health improvements on small farms. So I guess I'm curious, like, what support you can offer. Obviously these larger farms also could use support, but kind of how it would take shape in terms of like soil health improvements. And there's not identified concerns. The state hasn't even started inspections on vegetable farms yet.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Becky, because we wind up working with a lot of farms that sort of crest that threshold of being a certified small farm operation. And what do we do about, or what services do we offer for farms that don't meet that? Well, they still have water quality concerns and things that they need to fix. And I think the one, if there's one big thing that would come away with it from a support and technical assistance piece, is the interface with farm viability, the interface with agricultural business, so that we can still take a look and see how money moves around your operation and where it might come from, and just what the scope of work is that you may want to do. Whether you're required to do that by law or not, you still have to pay attention to what you've got going on the farm, because you could still wind up doing some things that might put you into a water quality issue where you might not want to be. And if you can take a look at your business from a sort of a comprehensive view, I think agricultural business and finance is an important piece to that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's great to know your services are available for vegetable farms, because I guess I wasn't even aware that I could be pointing people in your direction on this specific topic. So it's great. I mean, I think the low-hanging fruit for a lot of vegetable farmers, for starters, is reducing phosphorus applications. And for a lot of people, that comes at an excessive cost, especially organic farms. The the cost of a compost or manure-based fertilizer is a lot lower than the cost of a non. So that's kind of been the thing we've been most struggling with in terms of financial changes for farmers.
Mhm. And that's what we're looking forward to collaborating, and on that. That's a perfect example of where we could lend some of our capabilities in that financial planning side, business planning, and also what and I'd like feedback from you on this, but we feel that a lot of these veg and berry farms do have value-added activities on the farm that could involve the use of clean water, or have just like the theme of water quality issues on the farm. We've had people even from that have diversified farms that are doing technically dairy but cheese making and stuff, that have byproducts that they need to find equipment to invest in to help them with their byproducts that they have, such as the whey after cheese making. And so we specifically would love to reach out to these diversified farms as well.
Becky, I've got a question and then a comment. You mentioned that a lot of the work that you're doing right now with this group of folks is more related to nitrogen, phosphorus control, that kind of thing, and helping them make sort of agronomic choices. But I would still encourage every farm out there to look at whatever their infrastructure changes need to be and their requirements. And if something's going to be done, it still pays to take a look and see, am I doing this within good, sensible water quality and water management guidelines? And just because you might not have to comply, the RAPs are still a good idea to take a look at and ensure that if you do want to grow into something, that you didn't ignore your site work and your infrastructure on the farm early on, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in sort of a category that requires you to look at these things. And doing some of that work early, I think, is always a benefit.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think people have certainly made changes in terms of their tillage and equipment. There's been a lot of buzz about just reducing tillage on vegetable farms, so there has been a lot of energy in that direction. But I think it's been related to the RAPs, but not necessarily precipitated directly by them. So kind of an interesting confluence of factors have motivated these changes. But yeah, it seems like a good place for new farmers or anyone who's expanding an operation to start would be a conversation with you guys.
Yeah, that's the other way we look at it. And I know in the dairy world, there's the small farm operation and then the certified small farm operation. My guess is that you do still work with small farm operations that are sort of below that certified small farm operation category. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. The majority of the farms are in that category.
Yeah, and some of that just relates to the difference between the two groups relates to how often they get inspected, or if they get inspected at all. But my understanding always has been that if an inspector shows up on your farm and you've got a raging problem, you could wind up in violation of SFO regs as well.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And I think veggie farmers have been kind of bracing for it, but I don't think that there's I don't think there's surprise inspections for SFOs, and they're not registered with the state. So, but we'll see. I mean, I always say vegetables don't poop, so people are a little less worried about vegetable farmers from the beginning. But
oh dear. Okay.
well, I think it'd be great to, like Vern said in the next newsletter, to get something out there, kind of summarizing your work and your availability, if you feel like taking on a few more people this winter. And I'm also, I we'll certainly refer people to you too. And you know, one thing might be just to like put our heads together and crunch numbers about what some of these changes would cost and kind of different scenarios for vegetable farms.
You know, and I was thinking about this a little earlier, Zach, that we could also, you know, I know that this is sort of one medium that y'all use, but if you got anybody who even has a question about, geez, do I need to think about this or not? You know, we certainly would benefit from getting involved in that conversation as well, just so that we not, you know, we're not barking up the wrong tree kind of thing. But you know, I expect there's more out there than we're willing to think about right now, and the more we dig into it, I think the more we will find that agricultural business does have some value.
Tony and Zach, this is Paul Feenan in Richmond. Thanks for the presentation. I I'll just skip right to a recommendation, because I think one of the things you're going to find in the veg and berry world is, especially given the fact that there aren't that the wraps are not pressuring individual landowners to come to you, and I think that's a fair statement. There is no incentive right now other than someone's desire to improve, you know, their water quality, the practices on their farm that will result in improved water quality. But so I don't know that so my recommendation is to consider, and I think it would be really fantastic to hear you guys at conferences or webinars or veg and berry meetings. I think that's a great place to get that buzz going, and get people. I mean, there's no way that sitting and hearing you guys talk about this and how we can each individually improve or, you know, mitigate any water quality issues that we might already be creating or could create down the line. There's just no way that people wouldn't go away from a workshop like that and be thinking about it, and then subsequently reach out. So that's something just to consider. I don't know what other people think about that, but it's just been completely vacant from our webinar conference go round. And I think that's because it hasn't been a hot button issue. But I'm thinking about just the parallels here between this and FSMA, where diversified farms are managing manure and things like that on the farm, and you know, keeping that manure in place and handling it well benefits both of those factors for the farm, both water quality and food safety. And I'll pause there.
Good. Well, thank you, Paul, for recognizing that, because we do one of the things with this round of grant funding that we have is to establish workshops and go to more conferences and sort of branch out, just as you spoke of. And so when I don't know, was it June, Zach? I think we got one of those 11th hour phone calls, hurry up and put something together, some money's there. When we did that, we didn't want to just go out and serve 40 more farms one-on-one. We wanted to make sure that, we were putting out the right kinds of webinars and getting engaged in conferences, and maybe having, and I've done this many times before, where you have 5 minutes at the end of someone else's presentation where you put the information out there and you just make yourself available to answer, no such thing as a silly question. And that's what our intent is this time around, and figuring that we get out there now, because in the winter months is when a lot of these things go on, and we'll be prepared for that. And this is sort of our first foray into the veg and berry world for us. So to hear a comment like that, I really appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's a great idea. I guess unless you guys have anything else, I will stop recording. And yeah, anything else to comment on?
Just the last question, I guess, that I would have of you, Becky, is that, what Paul was speaking of, I translate that directly back into access. We've got to have somehow we've got to have a connection, communication, and some access to when those meetings are, you know, agendas and things like that. Are we in the loop at this point, or what should we do to get in that loop?
Yeah, good question. I mean, Zach is pretty in the loop. He's been, I think, involved in most of these webinars, which has been great. And we are putting together the agenda for the winter meeting for Vermont veg and berry growers, but also, you know, I'd say we're a little loose with our our motivation for webinars and meetings. So if you guys have anything to put forward too, we can certainly, you know, host other webinars or whatever. But yeah, the big annual meeting is, I think, January 25th right now, and it'll be virtual, obviously. So we can keep you guys looped into that, and would love to have you talk for a few minutes there.